Good afternoon. My name is James Preston Allen, publisher of Random Links News, and we are here in the newsroom of Random Links to introduce the readers to Marissa Roy, who happens to be running for the office of City Attorney for the City of Los Angeles. Marissa comes with a highly educated background in law and has worked for the Attorney General of the state of California, helping to sue the Trump administration on several occasions, and I'll let her speak to that. But welcome to Random Links.
Thank you for having me, James.
So, give me most of the time, the city attorney's race is sort of the also ran, not very well known, but you have shaken things up.
Thank you.
How have you done that?
Well, it's always kind of sad to me that the city attorney's race isn't one that's paid attention to, because the city attorney has so much impact on our daily lives and also so much potential to do good. People don't realize the city attorney has the power to sue any business for anything that is unlawful, unfair, or deceptive. So that means the companies that are stealing wages. I think people, particularly in the Pedro community, have known that harm. The landlords who are unlawfully jacking up rent or denying repairs to harass people out of their housing. The companies that dump toxic chemicals in our communities and don't do the cleanup. The city attorney has the ability to hold these corporations accountable and then reinvest that recovery into the communities that have been harmed. We don't do that. We don't use that at the city attorney's office. And you see cities up and down the state doing this work. And so that's my background. And so I ran for this position because I know the power of this office. It's what I've done in my career. And I want it to be the most significant public interest law office in this city.
So, is your critique of the current city attorney that she has done little or none of that?
Absolutely. You look at it's 1,000 people in the city attorney's office. Less than 5% of that staff is devoted to the public rights work. And we see it every single day, just the absence of it. The lineage logistics fire that just happened in Boyle Heights, that is corporate negligence. Our city attorney should have opened an investigation the next day, should be suing once we figure out who should be held accountable, and then should be getting that recovery to reinvest it back in not only the Boyle Heights community, but the other impacted communities in the area. That is the power of what a proactive city attorney could be doing, but we don't have someone who is using the position to hold corporations accountable.
Shouldn't also the district attorney do that?
It would be great if the district attorney would do that, but it's a question of political will. This district attorney could be doing that, but chooses not to.
So, you heard on this last Thursday night, the felon in the White House go after election fraud.
Yes.
How would a city attorney defend against that?
So the city attorney, part of what Trump is trying to do is use the threat of funding to push states and cities into his agenda. The truth is, states and by proxy the counties, they have control over the election. That is basic constitutional law. And so if he is trying to use the threat of withholding grants, we can sue. And that's something in the first Trump administration, I represented the city of LA, or the county of LA, in all of their litigation against the first Trump administration. So about over a dozen legal actions. And one of the things that we were frequently involved with was the Trump administration trying to use the threat of pulling grants to coerce cities and counties. And that there is protection in the 10th Amendment, and all of the Supreme Court precedent is actually, funnily enough, written by the conservative justices, written by Scalia and Roberts. That is what protects counties from the federal government trying to coerce them into their agenda. And so if he tries to pull those grants, we can sue the Trump administration.
And the conservative justices are considered to be originalists.
Yes.
Which means what?
Means that they want to be loyal to the Constitution as it was originally conceived. They are very reticent, so they say, to allowing the Constitution to be thought of as a living document. But here's the truth of the Constitution in its original state. It protected state rights. It protected localities, which means it protects California's ability to run their own elections.
Right. In fact, there's two places in the Constitution, actually. One is in the main body of the Constitution about how states are controlling the elections. And then I think it's either the 9th or 10th amendment that says any powers that are not given to the federal government are delegated to the states and to the people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's the 9th Amendment. The 10th Amendment is states' rights as well, but for both of those two, making sure that it's understood that unless enumerated, something isn't a federal power, that we have power that is concentrated in our states and localities because those are the levels of government closest to the people.
Right. And of course, that puts the conservative justices in a bind.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, of their own creation.
Yes.
They're originalists except when.
Yes, and there are some you'll see that are consistent. It actually is one of the reasons why for every effort the Trump administration tried to defund sanctuary cities, every single one of those cases was won in the first administration. And actually, it's why it's been such a successful strategy. The California Department of Justice has sued the Trump administration, gosh, at this point, I know over 66 times, has protected $168 billion in funding that the federal government tried to pull. It's funding for healthcare and research and public safety, and that those have been the most successful lawsuits. I just want LA to get in on the game because we have the California Department of Justice suing, we have San Francisco suing, we have San Diego, Sacramento, and LA's absence is being felt. It's one of the main reasons that the San Francisco, San Diego, and Oakland city attorneys have endorsed me, because they cannot carry the weight of this load without the biggest city attorney's office in the state.
Right. And do you feel that, let's go back a step. You worked for the California Department of Justice.
I still work there, yeah.
You still work there?
I do. Of course, I have to say, for identification purposes only, I'm a Deputy Attorney General in Consumer Protection. I'm not representing the department or the Attorney General in this interview, of course.
Right. But you've taken a leave of absence?
I'm actually currently still working at my job right now. I'll take another leave for the General in September.
Okay. So the state of California, while working at the state of California, you have sued the federal government how many times?
My work against the federal government was when I was representing LA County as outside counsel. So I've, I can't really talk about the work that I've done in this realm currently, but my current cases that are published, that are public, are my cases against Meta and TikTok, doing consumer protection cases, and then also just wrapped up a case against a big landlord up north who was abusing tenants, and we won back over $500,000. So that's all the public matters that I can talk about with the California DOJ.
Okay. So you sued Meta and TikTok? Mm-hmm. What was that case about?
So they're still ongoing. We have filed lawsuits essentially claiming that they have crafted the apps to induce compulsive use among users, particularly young users, and trying to recover for all the mental health harms they could cause kids. So TikTok, we're in state court, and then the Meta case is 29, I think now, state attorneys generals in federal court in the Northern District. That's going to trial in August.
Uh-huh. And there's already been settlements, hasn't there?
There have. New Mexico got, it was actually a verdict, $375 million. That was the New Mexico Attorney General. And then there is a companion or a related case brought by individual plaintiffs in state court in Los Angeles that just won a $3 million jury verdict.
Interesting. And the civil case that you're bringing against Meta, does that have a dollar figure connected to it?
Well, what I can say, based on publicly available reporting, Meta, there was just a story that came out about the 4 states that are taking this to trial in August. That's Colorado, New Jersey, Kentucky, and California. And the figure that Meta is citing that has been reported on is 1.4 trillion.
With a T?
With a T, yes.
Jesus. So, there's some big things going on, and the city attorney for Los Angeles is not participating.
No, and here's the thing, the city attorney has equal power to the attorney general in consumer protection. That is actually what is so extraordinary about this office, is that the city attorney in Los Angeles has the ability to act almost, again, with the same authority as the attorney general's office of the state of California. We just don't use that authority. We have in the past.
Who knew, except somebody in sight? So there's 1,000 attorneys at the city attorney's office.
Yeah. Or 500 attorneys, 500 supporting staff too. So 1,000 professionals.
Okay. How many of those people have the expertise to do what you do?
Well, the nice thing, probably about 25 right now are in the public rights division, but the people who are there are so excellent and talented, and they're the people who taught me. So I got my start at the LA City Attorney's Office working, it was called affirmative litigation, and that is where we brought pretty significant workers' rights cases. Okay, my first case was down at the port of LA and Long Beach. We were suing Cal Cartage and 2 other associated companies for misclassifying truck drivers as independent contractors.
I remember that case.
Yeah, that was my case back in the day. Another one was suing 2 car washes in Silver Lake. They were paying undocumented workers as little as $4.50 an hour, banking on the fact that those workers could not sue because they would suffer retaliation based on immigration status and immigration consequences. But when we bring that lawsuit, the name on the lawsuit is just the people of the state of California. We gave them anonymity, and we were able to settle that case and get them between $10,000 and $40,000 each. So the people who I worked with on both of those cases are still at the city attorney's office. The people who taught me how to be a consumer protection attorney are, keeping their head down and trying to survive this administration, but they're still there, and they are so excited to be unleashed for good.
So, one of the critiques of the city attorney's office comes by way of the neighborhood councils. Mm-hmm. The neighborhood council system was created by the new charter, and was supposed to be the empowerment of local neighborhoods as a voice to local government.
Yeah.
And in the course of the last 25 years, it would seem as though the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment has done anything but that. And it generally comes down to 2 things. One, hiring the done staff to consult neighborhood councils who basically know nothing about Robert's Rules of Order or the bylaws of the existing neighborhood councils. And the sort of lackadaisical attention that the city attorneys for the neighborhood council department do their jobs. I mean, it takes weeks to get an opinion. The city attorney is supposed to represent the neighborhood council the same way it would represent the city council.
Right.
And yet, the relationship is more like a fiefdom or something, where the city is more interested in protecting itself than making the neighborhood council system effective.
Yeah, and the neighborhood council system I think is such a special and unique part of Los Angeles. I'm trying to remember what D-Link stands for, but it's the downtown, downtown LA Neighborhood Council. I should figure that out myself. And they are such important advocates for downtown, for my neighborhood. I think also one thing I really noticed and heard from a lot of the neighborhood councils was they wanted to distribute Know Your Rights information to immigrants. And they are much more based in the community. They have such an ability to do that. And they were getting blocked by the city attorney's office. And my approach when I think about how to be a lawyer and have a client is, of course, we want to protect from liability, but we also want to help that client in their public role. And so there are disclaimers you can put. You can make sure that it's very known that we're giving this information, we're not giving legal advice, but here's the Know Your Rights information that we can distribute. And thinking about how the city attorney's office is not an obstruction, but is a helper to the neighborhood councils, to all parts of the city government, is the direction and the constructive relationship that I want to move toward, because our neighborhood councils have people serving in volunteer capacities who love their community, and they can bring a community-centered approach to this work. It's also one of the reasons there used to be a program called the Neighborhood Prosecutors.
Right.
And I want to bring it back as kind of a neighborhood advocates program, because it's not just the deputies who need to be in neighborhoods. We should make sure they're investigators, they're community outreach specialists. And it helps us make sure that we're building public safety strategies with communities. The neighborhood councils loved their relationships with the neighborhood prosecutors. And I would hope that part of it is we tailor solutions so we're understanding the needs of Pedro are different from the needs of Van Nuys, or different from the needs of downtown. And
Or perhaps more appropriately, they're often the same, but they're systemic.
Right, or they have a different character. They might be similar, but they're going to be the different stakeholders you need to engage for, Pedro's solution or downtown.
Let me interrupt you here.
Yeah.
Should the neighborhood prosecutors also be charged with advising the neighborhood councils?
I think that...
Or should they definitely be on board to routinely hear what the complaints are from the community so that they can prosecute the right slumlord or, drug corner or whatever else is going on?
It's a little more the latter. What's important to remember and hard to kind of get your head around with the city attorney's office is there are actually two clients in the city attorney's office. On one side is the city and every kind of body that falls under the city. And then on the other side is the people. And so that's all the consumer protection work, but it's also the misdemeanor prosecution and stuff like that. So the neighborhood prosecutors represent the people, which means they should be interacting with the neighborhood councils and stakeholders. They should be hearing the community input, but they don't advise the municipality. That's going to be a separate side.
Which brings up a whole different subject, which you and I have talked about before. Some cities bifurcate the city attorney's office.
Yeah.
Long Beach does.
Yeah.
They have a city prosecutor and then they have a city attorney. What's your argument for not doing that?
To be honest, I didn't take a position for a very deliberate reason when this was up for charter reform. I have seen so many different models of city attorney's office. In between my stints in government, I briefly, a couple of years, I guess not briefly, worked for a nonprofit called Public Rights Project that basically was like the ACLU for local government. Worked with over 90 local government partners across the country. So I represented 8 cities suing Governor Ron DeSantis and winning. I've represented counties in Arizona and Michigan, represented Houston suing Governor Greg Abbott, and we won. And so I've had the chance actually to interact with various models of city attorney, from appointed to elected to bifurcated to New York's model, which is, I wouldn't even call it bifurcated because it's almost like they have 5 different departments that are doing different pieces of the job. And
which model works best?
It depends on the person, to be honest. It depends on also what kind of accountability you have. Because One of the stories of probably the worst appointed city attorney I ever had to deal with was in Gainesville. Ron DeSantis had passed a law after the Black Lives Matter protests, not only adding criminal penalties to protests, but saying that if any city reduced its police budget for any reason, the whole municipal budget could get appealed up to him and his cabinet and he could rewrite it. And it's not just about using, if that budget would be reduced to fund alternative crisis response. It's things like, say 1 year, a city updated all the tech in the police department, and so it was a one-time expenditure that bumped the budget. Now it's a one-way ratchet, you can't take it back down. And so what if you had a fiscal crisis and you needed to take all of the budgets down? It really hamstringed local governments, and so I represented a coalition of cities, 8 cities that ranged from cities that would consider themselves progressive to cities that would consider themselves fiscally conservative. And in Gainesville, the appointed city attorney, even though her commissioners wanted to do this lawsuit, tried every single underhanded move to block it, and she was a DeSantis supporter, and it was completely inappropriate. And luckily her commission voted over her advice, where she was saying our lawsuit would fail for every which reason, and then it won. But I just remember thinking, this is someone who is an appointed city attorney who is not taking the considerations of her client.
Right, because she's only held accountable by a commission.
Right.
In Long Beach, for instance, I believe both the prosecutor and the city attorney are elected.
Right. Right, and
Which would be a difference. Now,
yeah.
is that model appropriate for Los Angeles?
I mean, I think that the reason I could kind of see its merit is, until this current city attorney, even I, as someone who had worked in the office, was completely unaware of how far it could be abused. We had a city attorney who council would authorize a contract for $900,000 for outside counsel, and she would spend $1.8 million for 2 years of representation, and she'd spend double that, $1.8 million in 2 weeks, and there was nothing they could do. Any other client could just fire their attorney. If your attorney overspent by double and without your permission, you would fire that attorney, but the city council couldn't.
So are you indicating that perhaps there has been some corruption in the city attorney's office because of these outside legal services that are vetted out to perhaps favored law firms? Is that what you're indicating?
I think what I'm getting at is that this city attorney has completely overridden her client, acted on her own. I don't know whether it's whim or political agenda or favoritism, I don't know the motive, but she has completely overstepped, and I think it is to the detriment of taxpayers. And what I will say is that, charter reform on the city attorney's office didn't go through, but I am committed to adding restrictions to the city attorney's office, because this is the model we have now, and I want that model to be insulated from future abuse. And so I have a package of restrictions that I would like to add to the city attorney's office to make sure that the city attorney is forced to communicate better and seek better approvals from city council in those matters. Can't these seem so basic, but can't overspend on what they are authorized without seeking council permission. Again, seems basic, but if we need to
what any
codify
other
it.
department would have to do.
Exactly. And then also, again, just increase the communication and make sure we add real deadlines to get work product back, because another strategy of this city attorney has been simply to delay projects she doesn't agree with, ordinances she disagrees with.
So there was a directive of a vote from the council about the use of less lethal munitions against the media.
Yeah.
and Ms. Feldstein refused to act on that. Is that correct?
So what happened was, this is an issue that the city of Los Angeles has faced so many times. The city was sued for LA use of force against journalists and protesters in 2000 and lost. 2007 and lost. 2020, not only lost, but that use of force prompted the state of California to pass stronger restrictions on police use of force during protests. And then got sued again. There was an injunction last September, I believe it was September. Once again, the city lost. And there were 6 weeks where the city attorney could have been getting the department into compliance with the law. Because I think a lot of people think that the job of an attorney is to simply defend your client at all costs. It's actually much more nuanced than that. The best way to defend your client is make sure they follow the law in the first place. Let's prevent the lawsuit. And so the moment a decision was handed down, the 4th loss, that would have been the time to get the department into compliance. Instead, she went over her client. She didn't let counsel know. And she tried to get that order overturned, tried to get that order vacated. And she cited all of these reasons why it was ambiguous. She's not a litigator, so she doesn't realize that if there were ambiguities, you could file a motion to clarify that. You could file a motion with some suggested language to make it better. Instead, she motioned to vacate it completely and ask for a blank check. And because she had wasted that 6 weeks not getting the department into compliance, the No Kings protest, it was the day before the No Kings protest, she tries to get this motion to vacate. Counsel has to override her, which is a very unusual move for a client after they haven't been informed to have to direct their attorney to change strategy. And there were violations the very next day. And instead, if you had invested that time in getting the department into compliance, maybe you would have been able to prevent, future.
So there's a number of areas where the city of Los Angeles suffers financial risk and litigation on a regular basis.
Yeah.
One of them is the police department.
Yeah.
The other is the sad repair of our sidewalks.
Yes.
So as a city attorney, what can you do over and above what the police commission does to change the behavior of the police department, or to get rid of problematic police officers? And what can the city attorney do to force the city to abide by its settlement agreement?
Mm-hmm.
What is it, a $2 billion settlement agreement for sidewalk repair?
I think that, the thing to contextualize too for viewers is we were in a huge fiscal deficit last cycle. It was $1 billion. A third of that was liability payments, $300 million. The biggest offender was LAPD, but yes, a lot of it was also our infrastructure repairs. And part of the overspending is due to the current city attorney. There was liability overspending, in past city attorneys, sometimes by 10 million, 1 year 36. In her first year, she overspent by 100 million. In her second year, she overspent by 200 million. And in her third year, nearly 250 million. And it's because of all this outsourcing to big law firms. She doesn't know how to value a case, and so she often, instead of taking a reasonable settlement, will push something to a nuclear verdict. And so there's been a lot of her mismanagement that we can use to kind of take down those litigation costs. But the real way to take down liability costs is compliance. And so what I'm going to work on, with the controller's help actually, is we're going to start with a liability audit, and it's going to look at 2 things. Number 1, let's identify all of the recurring causes of litigation so that we can identify what are the new protocol, what are the new discipline measures that we need to implement. And we have the advice function with all departments, including LAPD, where we give the legal advice and say, these are the measures you need to take to prevent from liability. And that is our role. We also can help in crafting settlement terms that meet the realities of what the department can do, but also make sure we're setting benchmarks that they have to meet and they have to follow. Those are through consent decrees and settlements. And then on the other side, what I want the liability audit to look into is I want to put a number to when the city council doesn't spend X amount on street lamp repair, it costs Y amount in litigation over the next 5 years. Because I think that we know it intuitively, we know that it would be cheaper to just do the infrastructure repairs, but I would like the stark reality of that number. And I would like that hopefully to incentivize council to be more forward-thinking. Of course, the city attorney doesn't have
proactive.
Yes, the city attorney doesn't have a role in determining the budget, of course, but it's going to be, I think, a resource. And I think I've been really excited that the controller, for his not only his endorsement, but that he is excited about these ideas too.
So you can advise departments, like the police department. Do you have the power to force them to comply?
The courts do. And that is, there are consent decrees that are already in place. And the penalties for violating consent decrees, that is contempt of court. And so the court has the power to force the department to meet these benchmarks. And as the attorney, my job is going to be, let's implement protocols before it gets to a consent decree.
So it's leverage.
Yes.
But when you have tension between city council and a police chief, they're not in agreement, particularly with this use of force thing, right?
Yeah.
What kind of leverage do you hold over the police department that says, guys, the solution here is compliance, not more obstruction?
I think the reality is, I will give the fair and most protective advice I can. If the court has to come in and issue an order, then there will be no leeway. And so I can hope that we start by taking the good faith advice of your city attorney on how to get in compliance, but it will end in a court order without that. And so the outcome will be the same. There's just a way to do it, much more voluntarily.
Right. So, do you already have a working relationship with Chief McDonald?
I do not, but I think that I'm going to come in as an attorney, and I think I'm going to be, again, doing that analysis with the controller to identify the recurring litigation patterns and the recurring risks, and I'm going to give the advice on how to prevent those violations in the future. And so I'm going to build that relationship not just with leadership of all departments, frankly. And what I hope is that they see that this council is backed by a lot of data, and that my goal, which is hopefully a goal they share, is simply that every single department follows the law.
Well, that is optimistic. So there is providing departments with data. In my experience, the city of Los Angeles doesn't respond to anything except political pressure and budget. So I would think that your candidacy will, in part, be some political pressure, particularly on LAPD, to take the city attorney more seriously. question really becomes, do you have the support of the police commission? And will you have the support of the city council as a whole to back up your giving opinions to, because being a businessman,
Yeah.
okay, when a lawyer gives me their opinion, I say, thank you for your opinion, and then I usually do what I'm going to do.
Oh, you're that type of client.
Yes. With my own justification, and I'm sure that Jim McDonald is probably somewhat the same way. I'm the one that's appointed to do this job, and I'm not going to, stand for having a bunch of lawyers who've never fired a pistol in self-defense.
Well, here's the thing. I'm an officer of the law, and the thing I know and my expertise is the law. So I on this one, very much have the law on our side. I don't need to know how many times more the city needs to lose. And so I will do the analysis, give the pathway to prevent future violations. And if that is not taken, we will have the law on our side, and it will be the courts who will be able to say, if there is no political will, what the commission or council put in. And once there is a court order, which we already have several consent decrees, there is no leeway to violate that court order that is contempt. And I think there's nothing that anyone can do to get around that. And
Is that grounds for removing a police chief?
contempt? I haven't seen that, but contempt is an equitable remedy, which means that the judge can
Sanction.
the judge can kind of craft what the sanction looks like.
So, have you ever had to pack a gun?
I have not.
Okay. Nor have I. I've had multiple threats in my life as a publisher.
Really?
And, I think the last time someone threatened me, they called up and made some kind of accusation that they were going to come and beat the crap out of me, and I said, well, I tell you what, I'll be on the sidewalk in 10 minutes in front of my office. Either you're man enough to show up or you're a coward.
Oh, okay. Maybe not my approach.
Yeah. So, I'm kind of summing up. Your campaign is kind of a bellwether on local politics in Los Angeles, if not part of this progressive wave of candidates nationwide. Frame that for the public.
I think this race to me is one about this vision of what our local government can do. Do we want a local government that works for the people, that serves the public? Do we want a local government that serves entrenched, powerful, and corporate interests? My opponent is backed by millions of dollars from MAGA donors, from corporate donors, and it's because they know they want to pick their prosecutor. They want to pick someone who is going to keep things the status quo, not stand for corporate accountability. And in me, they have someone who has successfully already sued companies for wage theft, who has already sued the Trump administration and won, who has already sued landlords and won back $500,000 for tenants. I am not just someone who is running for office with a vision. I have a pretty strong track record on this. And they know what I could do in the city attorney's office. And so I think my race is one of the clearest examples of people power versus corporate power. And I think that in my mind, I'm progressive, but I don't consider that only something that appeals to progressives. I think that so many in our city have experienced the impacts of of wage theft. I've experienced the impacts of corporations that are dumping toxic chemicals in their community. And I think that they understand that these corporations need to be held accountable, and that's what they should be able to look to their city attorney to do. So that's really what I'm running on, is are we going to be a city attorney's office that works for the people, or are we going to continue to have a city attorney's office that serves only the powerful?
Right. Lastly, on that apartment issue.
Yeah.
Last year we ran a story that revealed that some of the largest corporate apartments corporations were using an AI algorithm to price rents.
Yes.
And there were several of those corporations in the San Pedro area. And even though that was exposed, I have not seen a legal settlement or lawsuit.
Exactly, and that is where, when I try to explain to people the importance of the city attorney's office, we have actually some very strong laws on the books that protect tenants, that protect workers, but they mean nothing if no one is enforcing them. They're just protections on paper. So, I mean, we've had 23,000 complaints of tenant harassment filed with the housing department since the passage of the tenant anti-harassment ordinance. The city attorney has prosecuted just 2 landlords under that. There is algorithmic price fixing is a huge issue. San Francisco has taken proactive action against it. They have the same powers that we do. We could be filing a lawsuit.
Do you have enough lawyers in the department to actually take on all of these cases?
Here's the best thing. Whenever you take on these cases, you win 3 remedies. You win the injunction that stops the corporation from whatever illegal conduct they were engaged in. You win the restitution, that's the money that goes back to the victims that were harmed. And then you win civil penalties. That is money that goes to the government, up to $2,500 per instance. So every single instance of rent price fixing would add up. It adds
So
up to
every
millions.
time you win a case, that goes back to the general fund.
No, that's the
Oh.
best part. Those civil penalties can only be used for future consumer protection work. They cannot be diverted to the general fund. They cannot be diverted to other parts of
So
the
it goes
city.
into your department.
Goes into consumer protection, very specifically into consumer protection. And that is the model that other cities have used to bring up this work. So San Francisco, I think about 15 to 20% of their office does the public rights work. And it is revenue generating. It does not depend on the city budget, and they have a 2 to 3 year surplus in case, for some weird reason, they didn't have any case resolutions.
In case the city cuts their budget.
You know, yeah, and I think that it's brilliant, and that is exactly the way that I want to build up the city attorney's office in Los Angeles, is start winning these cases and reinvest the civil penalties into growing this work. My goal is to take it from 25 lawyers to be 100 lawyers who do the public rights work. And we just need to follow the model that's in other cities. And you know, I often joke about this. For anyone who thinks my vision and my platform is radical, it is actually profoundly unoriginal. It is just simply saying, let's follow the great public interest work that the California Department of Justice, that San Diego, that San Francisco, that Santa Clara do. We deserve a city attorney who is bringing that work to Los Angeles.
And it's all about representing the people.
Exactly.
So when it's the city, when it's the people of the city of Los Angeles versus, it should really be the city.
It's, yeah, the people of the state of California, but yeah, it's the people at the end of the day.
Marissa, thank you for your time today. Marissa Roy, running for the job of city attorney for the city of Los Angeles. Take a look at her position on her website, and come and see her at Labor Day and vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you.